I am Paul Kozadowski.
And I am Chris Riggs.
And we're going to talk about Ravel's Bolero. And in the concert, October 4th through 6th, you will do a lot of things, but one of the main things you're going to do is
Bolero.
Yeah. I see a lot of drums here, but I only remember one drum from Bolero. So why do we have 4 drums here?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about some of the things that we as percussionists go through when we're trying to decide the sound that we want for a particular piece.
Okay.
So in this instance, we have several different selections on what we might choose from. And I just want to kind of go through a little bit on each one and kind of show the difference of each.
A snare drum is not just any snare drum. I mean, there's different tones, different qualities.
Yeah, and there's a whole spectrum of different sounds and different drum heads you can use and different materials for the shell, which contribute to the quality of sound that we're choosing in between when we're making these decisions.
And you make these choices at what point? You decide ahead of time?
Yeah, usually ahead of time, I'll have a good idea of what sound I'm looking for and I'm aiming for. Sometimes the conductor will say, hey, we want something a little bit brighter or darker or more articulate, in which case we can change different elements of each drum to facilitate that different sound.
And the drum is obviously really important in Bolero, but this occurs, you do this for like all the percussion instruments.
Yeah, it's not limited to snare drums. Usually in the first rehearsal, if I'm playing cymbals, I might bring 3 or 4 or 5 pairs of cymbals to test during rehearsals. And then by the end of the week, I'll kind of have whittled it down to 1 or 2 different pairs that I want to use for the piece.
Yeah, because I mean, this program has a lot of cymbals, castanets, tambourines. So you'll bring a whole assemblage.
Yeah, we'll have a whole collection back there for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So first, let's talk about the field drum.
Okay.
So in a snare drum, there are 2 main components. There's the drum sound and there's the snare sound. So the drum sound is going to be much more prominent on a drum like this, where there is much more of a drum versus the snares on the bottom head here.
So that because it echoes around inside there, basically?
Yep, so you're going to hear more of the drum versus when we get down to the smaller instruments down here. So just as an example, you hear a lot of the drum sound, you hear some of the snare sound at the bottom, but in terms of the balance, you get a lot more of the drum sound.
Okay.
So if we move to this one, both of these have plastic heads, and this is made out of brass. So we're going to get a little bit more snare in the balance and a little bit less of the drum sound. So you hear the snare element a little bit more prominent compared to more of a drum sound. So we went from a plastic head, now we're going to a calfskin head.
Okay.
This is going to have a little bit of a softer feel to it on the head itself, and it's also going to take away just a little bit of the drum sound itself. So yet again, we're increasing the snare element of the balance.
And the snare is it's the thing that makes it vibrate a little bit. It's a piece of metal.
It can be made out of different materials, but you'll see here there's 3 different types of snares on the bottom. Wow. And each drum has its own set of snares as well. And these can be turned on or off. If you want to play just the drum sound, there's a little switch back here. You can get just the drum sound. So going back to the different types of heads. So here we have a calfskin head versus a plastic head. And yet again, like I mentioned, we're going to go with a little bit more of the snare sound as we increase down the line here. So here's the plastic head, and here's calfskin head. And then finally, we get to the smaller drum. Yet again, we're getting the shorter shell here, taking away elements of the drum and increasing the snare response.
Now you've got a whole bunch of sticks too, or mallets, right?
Yep.
Does that really affect the sound that much? It doesn't seem like it would.
Yeah, absolutely. It does affect the sound, not as crucially as the elements that we were talking about before, but it affects the sound a little bit. Something with a bigger bead like this is going to be less articulate than something with a smaller bead.
Okay.
Oftentimes, most percussionists feel that using a larger, longer bead helps with snare drum rolls and the smoothness of snare drum rolls versus a smaller bead like this for more articulation.
Okay. So, Bolero. I read somewhere that somebody called it one of the most difficult percussion parts in all of orchestra literature.
I'm not sure I would go that far.
Okay.
It depends how nervous you might get in front of an audience of 1,500 people or so. But it is can be a little nerve-wracking because you're trying to play incredibly soft if you have any nerves or something that's going to affect the consistency of
right.
sound.
Okay.
And so you do have to battle that a little bit.
What's the main challenge of it? I mean, because you're playing the same group of notes, same phrase.
Yeah.
How many times?
That I don't know.
I do.
Okay.
169 times.
Okay.
I looked it up. I didn't count it. I didn't listen to it to count it. But okay. So what's the challenge?
I'd say the biggest challenge, just starting it really nice and consistently with the nice phrasing. And then also just as you move through the piece, not to lose focus. You're doing a very long crescendo, but you want to maintain the phrasing that you started at the beginning throughout.
Right.
And then also just make sure you're balanced with the rest of the orchestra through the progression of the piece.
Right. Yeah, I would think that the crescendo, I mean, making it, steady and completely even through the 14, 15 minutes of what you're doing is pretty tough.
Yeah, and I have a lot of checkpoints in my music saying,
Oh.
okay, we're at mezzo piano now, or mezzo forte now, and
Okay.
this is where the trumpet comes in, or this is where the tuba comes in,
Right.
et cetera.
Right. Okay.
So to help me out along the journey.
Okay. Have you picked which drum you're going to use when you play on the weekend?
Yeah, so as we kind of think about the quality of sound we're looking for, I'll probably tend towards one of these two drums.
Okay.
Because I think the snare response is really important in the beginning of this piece. So I'll probably lean towards this. And to be honest, using a smaller drum makes it a little bit easier to play softly. So I'll probably use this drum here on the end for the snare response.
Okay. Now I notice you're playing way on the edge of the drum. Why do you do that?
Also a sound quality issue.
Okay.
If I'm playing that soft towards the center of the drum, listen to kind of how it sounds.
Okay.
It's a little bit deeper, it's a lot louder,
Yeah,
for sure.
right.
And the quality of sound just isn't as nice. We talked about the balance between the snare response and the drum itself.
Right.
For that, playing in the center, I get a lot more of the drum sound, and it's actually a little bit poppy versus when I'm playing here on the edge.
Right. Okay. Okay. And then do you move like toward the center of the head as you're crescendo?
Exactly. So at the very beginning, I'm playing right at the edge. If I'm at mezzo piano, maybe another inch in.
Okay.
And then by the end of the piece, when it's forte or fortissimo, I'm pretty close to the center playing.
Okay.
You want to give it a go?
Sure. All right. Right?
Yep.
Okay. Now I know that those notes were not very even, and that's the key, right? I can tell
That's
just
the
by
challenge.
yeah, right.
It seems like you're pushing into the drum, and you
Okay.
want to do as little work as possible.
Just
So
basically
almost-
let the stick fall.
Yeah, use gravity a little bit more, and then come off the head quicker so that you have a little bit of a lighter sound as well.
Okay.
It might help to maybe bring the index finger down
Oh, okay.
so it's wrapped
Okay,
around the
so
stick.
now like this, yeah.
And then turn your left hand a little bit more flat. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, so a couple of things to think about too is placement on the head. If you have one drumstick that's about ½ inch from the rim,
Okay.
and one stick that's about 1 inch away from the rim, you're going to get two different sounds,
Right,
which is going to
okay.
contribute to the unevenness. Another thing to think about is the balance between the two hands. So we spend a lot of time working on consistency from one hand to
Right,
the other.
right.
So if you're what we say right hand dominant, then you might hear something like this.
Right.
So you want to keep in mind that as well.
Okay.
So think about those two and give that another try.
And
Yep,
this one feels tighter, like I'm not.
Mine does too. It's
Yeah. Okay.
But also you're getting a little bit of buzz on some of the notes, which
Yeah.
means you're pressing into the head a little
Oh,
bit.
that's what. Okay. All right,
So,
right. So I gotta let it bounce up.
Gotta
more?
let, just as soon as you play it, it comes right off the head.
Okay.
So you just get one note per stroke. Good.
A little better.
If you want to try it on this drum, it might be a little easier. 'Cause
Well, I don't know. Yeah, it's all the drum's fault. That's why.
One other tip that might help, if you think about using bigger muscle groups versus smaller muscle groups, almost feel like you're handling two logs versus two small drumsticks, and then just think just a lot of arm weight.
Okay.
That might help with consistency.
Pretty good.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for the lesson. I appreciate
Yeah,
it. So again, this is the Sounds of Spain concert with June Markle conducting October 4th, 5th, and 6th right here in the Marcus Center.